Good evening, Soldier Boy here, and welcome to the stream that we weren't expecting for tonight. So slightly delayed on what we said last night, for different reasons. But the big news is, this isn't the game I said it would be. And I know, as we said, we'd start Guardians of the Galaxy this evening, and it'd be an earlier stream. The plan went wrong, so welcome back to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Age of the Vikings, for live stream number 4. Basically, I ordered the disc version because it was the cheapest way of me doing it, and they decided to send it to the wrong sorting office, which is weird because the sorting office it got sent to is 20 minutes from where I live, but because it got sent to the wrong sorting office it has to go back to the main depot to be resorted. So I'm not receiving it until tomorrow by the looks of things. So extremely annoying, extremely frustrating. I might as well add that to my day, to be honest. But there we go. So it does give us a chance to finish off the Age of the Vikings. So there is a plus point to Guardians of the Galaxy not arriving today. That's about the only plus I can think of currently. But yeah, it's frustrating knowing it was 20 minutes down the road, but they weren't allowed to deliver it to me until it had gone back to its main sorting office, which in my eyes makes no sense, since the sorting office is 2 hours away. Work that one out. So it was 20 minutes down the road, but I'm not allowed to have it because it didn't go to the right one. But there we go. Normally I would do a digital download, but the cheapest option was for me to do it via disc. So that's what I did. But it does, like I say, it gives us the chance to finish, hopefully, Age of Vikings today. Hopefully. Good evening, Kenna, how are you? I'm kind of up and down. I've had one of those weird days today. I've not had the best day, but I've not had the worst day. I don't know, I've just been in a really funny mood. There's things I needed to get done today, I didn't. I struggled a little bit today, just for motivation, more than anything else. So yeah, weird day. Extremely weird day. I would normally tweet, but I probably won't actually. I'm just going to crack on, I think. Plan is we're going to try and finish off. Who is talking? Oh, it's the priest there. I wonder who it was. Just walk away from him a little bit so it's not as loud. All I could hear was the priest. Yeah, to be fair, not getting it today isn't that big of an issue. You know, there's many more things that can happen in life that are worse than that. I'm trying to walk away from people so it's not so loud of talking. Just over here. Everyone's quite loud. I know it's happened to you a few times, I know. It didn't really frustrate me. I think my day in itself has been a bit up and down, and because of that, it just kind of added to it more than anything else. But it is what it is, so we will do what we have to do. We'll try and finish Age of Vikings this evening. That's the plan. And we will, hopefully, fingers crossed, toes crossed, be able to start Guardians of the Galaxy tomorrow evening. And we'll start earlier again. We'll start earlier, 8 o'clock stream. My other half's agreed to it, luckily. But yeah, a little bit frustrating, but like I say, it gives us a chance to finish the Age of Vikings. That's the plan. We've roughly done 2 chapters every 2-hour stream. We've got 3 chapters to go, so it's not guaranteed, but we're going to try and finish tonight. We'll see how we go. Good evening, Kathy. How are you? Thanks for the like. That's appreciated. To be honest, I'm kind of relieved to be streaming because, like I say, my day's been a really weird, frustrating kind of day today. So I'm kind of glad to be streaming. Okay, so we are in Winchester. Our next quest is actually number 6, and this is King Alfred. I'm assuming we're about to be King Alfred, or are we going to be Alric still? I don't know. One of the two. But before we move on to quest number 6, we're already in Winchester, so it kind of makes sense for us to clear Winchester of everything here first, and then we'll go and do number 6. That kind of makes a bit more sense in my eyes, since we're already here. If you missed your last night's stream, we managed to finish quest 4 and 5. So there is 3 quests remaining. 6, 7 and 8. So we'll see how the story takes us. And see what else we learn today. I think so. We've got 3 chapters to do. But looking at where quest number 6 is, there's no discovery points there. So that's why I'm also thinking if we do all the discovery points in Winchester, they're done. 6 could be just story only, is my thinking. But I don't know for sure. But we'll start by doing everything we can in Winchester first before we leave. It makes sense to do it while we're here. So I think we are quite close. And the first one to look at is the Old Minster. And it was the first cathedral or bishop seat of Winchester. The first bishop that settled there was Wine A. Saxon. Seriously? Is that his actual name? That is his name, isn't it? They're taking the mickey, surely. Wine A. Saxon was the name of the first bishop. Wine would eventually become the Bishop of London. Oh, no, actually, I'm saying that. Well, the first bishop to settle there was Wine. He was a Saxon, and Wine would eventually become the Bishop of London. That feels really wrong for someone to be called Wine. So this is the Cathedral Church of Wessex. It was built around 640 CE by King Semwal of Wessex and Saint Berenius, a Frankish mercenary. Though it was further north in Dorchester-on-Thames rather than in Winchester. When the bishop's seat was moved to Winchester a few years later, the Old Minster may have been the first stone building erected in Winchester since the departure of the Romans hundreds of years earlier. This in-game shot of Assassin's Creed Valhalla shows how development teams sought to capture the majestic interior of the building. However, the church would have felt far more cramped at the time, as the building itself was narrower with many side chapels and altars in the corners. Burning incense and smoke from the tapers would have also given it a sultry atmosphere, so they actually brightened it up for the game itself. And it would be a lot more cramped, but for the game they opened it up and put some nice candles in, so it looked a bit brighter by the sounds of it. You heard today there was going to be at least one more DLC. I've heard there is, but I don't know anything about it. I've heard rumours. Yeah, I've heard rumours, but I don't know anything concrete. There's lots of people saying different places, Scotland, and places like that. Ireland, we've done Ireland, we've done France. Yeah, a lot of people saying Scotland, from what I've seen. There's loads of talk, but no one really knows for sure. We've still got this thing that was mentioned about Cassandra as well, haven't we? But yeah, I don't know anything concrete, so I haven't really talked about it for that reason. Unless you've heard something I haven't, Catherine. You may have done. But yeah, I know there's one coming. I also don't know if it's included in the first season pass. There was talk you needed a year 2 season pass. But that's never been confirmed or denied either. So it's kind of a little bit of a mystery at this point, how they're going to do it. Okay, so we're going to head to this one next. I swear my camera's playing up on this. I don't know why. This seems to really... not the camera doesn't move one minute, or doesn't really swing wildly the next. It's really weird. Okay. Yeah, that's not me. Decided to do its own thing for a minute there. Okay, this is our next one. And this is about Alfred's silver coins. Coins from this period suggest that new mints were established between 871 and 878, including one in Winchester. King Alfred was minting coins with greater amounts of silver. So Alfred had needed more and more coins to pay the mercenaries he'd hired to protect Wessex, and to pay tributes to Norse invaders. For reasons that are still not entirely clear, even before he defeated the Viking chieftain Guthrum, Alfred decided to make more valuable coins with higher quantities of silver. The increase in silver may have been Alfred's way of announcing a new era of prosperity for Wessex. However, a higher silver content also meant a more stable coin economy, as people could rely on the value of coins. The coins also helped to display Alfred's new wealth and power after his victory over Guthrum. I would have said he minted new coins to be prepared. He was expecting a war, I think. It sounds like, and he wanted to show his power to the Vikings, didn't he? I would have said that's more of his reason. Hello, Cass. How are you? By the way, we mean to ask you, what does UDL mean on your name? So UDL is basically, a few years back, I came across a group of people. I also work with. Some of them I still work with. Some of them I don't. They've moved to different jobs. And they were a group of us that would get together and game. And it was called the Undead League. And there was no reason for the name. It was what someone called us at one point. And the whole point was, no matter where you are, what time of day it is, if you wanted to go online and chat to someone, play with someone, there was always someone there. That's what it was. And I've just always stuck with it ever since, to be fair. I've never really changed it. I know I can, especially my PlayStation name can change for free for one time, but I've just never changed it. It was always quite nice knowing that there was, these group of people you could call upon if needed, kind of thing. Yeah, it was just a nice group of people who were always there if you wanted. So no matter what time of day, all from all over the country. New people have joined that are in America, things like that. And it's just, it's a group of people that if you wanted someone to game with at any time of day, there's generally someone around. Especially now, because they've all worked different shifts and things now. So it's all a bit different. Whereas originally most of us worked together. To some degree, anyway. But yeah, I do consider changing it sometimes. Thank you for the like, that was much appreciated. But at the same time, Soldier Boy on its own is a name, which has been my name for many, many years, doesn't stand out for obvious reasons. There's a different way of spelling it. That's I don't know if you call him a singer, a rapper. His name is the same. And I just have that on the end, just, it kind of works. And it's kind of a throwback to say, thank you to those guys as well. So the next one we're looking at is the Witton. So in Anglo-Saxon Britain, it was expected that kings and queens would be counselled by a group of powerful nobles, the Witton. The Witton, or wise men, would gather in an assembly, Guillemots, to advise the ruler on their decisions. So these are going to be probably posh, well-to-do people, I would have suggested. Yeah, you can lose some of your trophies, some of your data. It depends on the games. A lot of games did it and some didn't. Yeah, we've had a little bit of detective work to do, and that's about it. There's no fighting. It did say at the start there was going to be no fighting. There was no combat. I did say that at the start. Yeah, I still think it's an interesting way of doing it. We've got 3 more quests to go, so we'll see how it turns out. So the Witton was made of aristocrats from both secular and religious backgrounds. There were noblemen and archbishops, aldermen and abbots. Depicted in this illustration at the ruler's side, the Witton acted as counsellors. Their advice was meant to ensure that the ruler's laws were just and worthy. The presence of the Witton meant that lawmaking was a group activity. As with any group project, the better the team worked together, the better the final project. If the king and the Witton had a difficult relationship, the system could break down. While the king could summon the Witton could also summon the king. If the king was ignoring the Witton and their advice, the Witton might challenge his laws. The king and the Witton needed to find a healthy balance of power between them so the laws be passed quickly and efficiently. I never knew that. I always assumed the king was the overall ruler of Anglo-Saxon Britain. But the fact he answered to this group of noblemen, bishops, archbishops, and if they weren't in agreement, there'd be issues. That's quite interesting. That's completely different to what I assumed. I always thought the king was first and foremost the ruler. But that's taken us slightly differently. Have you ever consumed fire in your vape? No, I haven't. You can lose trophies, yeah, you can. There's a few games that it's not really compatible with changing your name. Inhaled. No, I haven't inhaled fire. The name Castor was literally given to you. You didn't pick it. It was expensive key. Okay. You was given an expensive key, Keller. That's a bit different. I was on the Xbox 360, which I cracked. Now, when you crack your console, you get several games cheap. There's a catch. You can never play online. Ah, okay. Right, we also have one where we're going to hear for a bit from Sean, as he tells us all about Checkmate. This is the 3D modelling. Waging war is much like playing a game of chess. So this is about 3D modelling of war, I suppose. I thought for a minute it was going to be chess, but I don't think it is. I tried to go online, show me an error message. Oh wow! So you changed on places for just Castell. No, it makes sense. Yeah, I've had Soldier Boy for years. Ever since leaving the army, it was the kind of thing. I was called it in school because it was always my dream to be in the army. So I was called it before I joined the army, and I kind of just stick with it ever since. Expensive key. It is a bit weird saying it out loud. Yeah, I suppose it makes sense. Right, let's see what Sean has to tell us.
AC Valhalla is set during a very tense political climate. English kingdoms were fighting one another, as well as trying to ward off Viking attacks at the same time. Hence, maps are displayed in the game as battle plans. To help players visualize friends and foes, chess pieces were designed. The 3D modelling team first created items inspired by an early Scandinavian chess set, the Njevetappel, which was combined with the Lewis chess pieces. Recently found in Scotland, they were crafted out of walrus tusk and whale teeth in the 12th century. This design merged English and Scandinavian heritage into a unique item.
So the maps were used as battle plans. I like the way they did that. I think that was definitely a good way to do it. To be fair, you can helps you visualize everything better. I think that was definitely a good choice for them to do. But yeah, I think that worked well, to be fair. You're right, I'm not a fan of Sean's AC Valhalla either, to be fair. It doesn't really work very well. The self-aware jokes on it. It's like he's breaking the third wall, isn't it? It doesn't quite work. The whole part of Assassin's Creed Rogue was the modern-day Templars collecting footage of shades so they could cyberbully one-day assassins. Oh wow, okay. Right, where are we looking next? I think out here. So what the plan is, we're going to clear the Wessex, all the marks in Wessex. Then we'll move on to chapter 6, which is over there to the left. We've got one more in here. We might as well head out and basically do a circle round, I think. It's probably the best option. We don't even know what it means. You don't even know what your name means on PlayStation. That makes no sense, Keller. Oh yeah, you went into depression. Yeah, Desmond's father. Yeah, I'm not surprised, to be honest. So Old English literature. Alfred's subjects struggled to understand the Bible because it was written in Latin. To help his people access the scriptures, Alfred promoted Christian literature, written in their mother tongue, Old English. So Alfred wanted to be remembered as a good Christian king. He was bothered by his people's ignorance of the Bible, and felt that the poor Latin was to blame. To solve this, he pushed to have Latin classics translated into Old English. This gave rise to the birth of Old English literature. Alfred believed strongly in literacy. He wanted all young aristocrats to learn to read and write. This wasn't only for religious purposes. Being able to write and understand messages in Old English could have been used for war and diplomacy. Old English also became a literary language for sagas and epic poems, such as Beowulf, pictured here. This is an excerpt of the epic poem The Legend of Beowulf. Obviously Beowulf was in the game. The actual story itself is slightly different how the game depicted it. But yeah, the big problem they had is obviously the Christian church was dependent upon the Pope, and their language, everything was written in from the scriptures, was all Latin. Most common folk couldn't speak Latin. They couldn't read it, or they couldn't speak it, they couldn't write it. So there were monks that were their only task was to sit for 10, 12 hours a day and translate Latin to Old English. That was their job for hours and hours on end. Just so normal, regular people could read the scriptures. There's a lot of effort he went to try and make it a lot more inclusive than it already was. Okay. Oh, we can. I wasn't sure if we could get out of here, to be fair. Right, where next? If we head... I've got... done that one. Done that one. Cool. So let's head down here. We do these two, head up, clear these round, and then we'll start chapter 6. That's the plan. You don't think it means anything? The PFP having PlayStation with the Purple Wolf, I paid for it. You paid for it on the PlayStation. I see, I've never bought one. Avalon means paradise. Yeah, no worries, Kathy. Yeah, no, he does. You're right. He does say them in alphabetical order. So yeah, Avalon would be right at the top every time you're online. You'll find, for those that have added me on PlayStation, you will find I am never online, but I obviously am. Because I just made a decision earlier when we started streaming. I decided I wouldn't show online because I didn't want loads of invites to keep popping up from people that see that I'm online. So I'm always offline now. It just makes life a lot easier. Okay, we're looking at the fjord or militia. So under Alfred's rule, each burh or fortified town will be able to raise its own fjord or militia of warriors. This meant there was a constant military presence throughout the kingdom of Wessex. Sorry, I'm trying not to sneeze. Oh. Sorry about that. I've just been shot. That's what sneezing feels like. It's like you're being shot through the back. Oh, it's horrible. Okay, I'm alright. We'll carry on. The reason I appear offline is because I have stalkers. Yeah, that's not good. Thank you. Yeah, sneezes are still painful. Sneezes don't get better. I knew it was coming, I just couldn't stop it happening. Sorry about that, I apologise in advance. Right, let's carry on. According to the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, Alfred divided his army in two. Half the men were at home and half on duty. Those on duty were expected to come, if called, to defend the burh or to join the king and his lords in battle against their enemies. Not all militiamen in the fjord were necessarily skilled warriors. Wealthier fjords could offer better equipment and weapons to their defenders, and wealthier men would have more free time to train for war. Poorer freemen, who spent most of their hours working, would have fewer opportunities to practice their combat skills. Spear was one of the most common weapons used by militiamen. An iron spearhead could inflict terrible wounds from a distance, which was a great tactical advantage. Obviously they don't look that fearsome now, do they, spearheads? Over time it's kind of worn them down, but imagine them coming at you. But interesting how there was this massive divide between rich and poor, but even in the militia, the poor never had time to train, so they would go into battle massively underprepared, whereas I'm just reading Cass's comment, whereas the richer people had all this time to train. Who was likely to survive a war? The poor people who never trained, or the rich people that could? It's always going to be the poor people that don't survive. So there's still that massive divide between the people. Thank you for all your blessings, I appreciate it. Let's play a game. Every time you sneeze and close your eyes, you have to drink a shot. Well, considering I can't drink because of the amount of tablets I'm on, I have to say no to that, I'm afraid. Right, so for the next one over here, we're getting there with these. We'll get the Winchester done, like I say, and then we can start with the next chapter. I think we're heading into here by the looks of it. That panoramic view, I think that is a glitch or bug with the game. It keeps popping up but yet doesn't do anything, so I think there is a slight issue graphically there. Not that it gets in the way, it's just a little bit annoying when I keep spotting it. So where are we going for this one? I think we're going up. Am I going to have to start climbing up? I don't know. We are up. Luckily there's a ladder. I didn't really want to be parkouring really. We are Thorstein, which obviously doesn't make sense because we know Thorstein isn't quite here yet. We were Elric, weren't we, as we finished yesterday, but we started today as Thorstein because I think that's the generic character. So this is about the boar. The burr? I think you say burr. And it was a fortified town designed to protect nearby villages from enemies, often found near rivers. Burrs were equipped with fighters, barricades, and other means of defence against violent raids. Yeah, the rich people trained, the poor people didn't have the time. Not that I can think of, Cass, to be honest. I can't think of anyone that would have gone... You can change your character, yes. We haven't, because we've been doing the story. We can change our character in a second if you want to have a look at someone else, while we're doing the Winchester anyway. Yeah, I can't think of anyone offhand that went from poor to king. You've got the illegitimate children, possibly, of kings that came to power because of deaths to the king and stuff. But they're illegitimate, so they probably count as poor people, and they had to fight to be recognised. So I suppose you could count them as people. Thank you for the like, there was much appreciated. Good evening, gaming. How are you? So some burghs were built atop existing Roman walls and fortresses, while others were built from scratch. They become powerful social centres, safe havens where locals could find protection and security. Warriors may have stabled their horses within the burh so they could ride swiftly to the defence of surrounding villages. It is likely burghs had ways to communicate and to warn each other of danger. If a burh such as the one sketched here was under attack, its people might have lit a beacon, a fire that could be seen from great distances, to put the other strongholds on high alert. I know that says might have lit a beacon, but that's what they did. They had beacons all around at different points and would light them if they saw a raiding party incoming. It was to warn people, obviously. I want to see you interacting with King Alfred. To be fair, the next quest is King Alfred. I think we're Elric for the next quest, and King Alfred. But yeah, the different characters. We've unlocked some characters already. Obviously the ones we're using, and then we've got Ivor, male, female, young Sigurd, Gunhilda, Summer, Basim, Fulke, Hytham, Stow, Odin, Ivor the Boneless. I think that's all of them. Oh, and Chilbert. The rest will unlock as we finish off. That sounds like a dance move that future kids would make up. Okay. You're still in the first area game. It does take a while. Once you start moving, though, it then does speed up. Right, I can actually jump, and we can't get hurt, as you saw. I just thought I'd do a Superman jump. Do I want to go out there? I don't. I know where we've got to get to. I've just got to try and find a way there. Hang on. Let's do this. So we're just working our way round so we can get these last bits before we start Chapter 6. Yeah, I had to do the jump. I just thought I would act like Superman for a minute. Homestead memories are really good. Right, where are we heading? Just slightly... Oh, it's below us, okay. We're nearly there. And then got busy. I'm really enjoying it, to be fair. I'm looking forward to doing other things, but I'm really enjoying it. I think the way they've done it is really good. Okay, so the next one we need to do is here. And this is about the 7 kingdoms. This should be quite interesting, I think. When a chief grew powerful enough, he and his tribe would seek to subdue their neighbours, sometimes by violence, sometimes through alliances. These power struggles led to the creation of the first kingdoms. So this would be, I'm assuming, how they split England up. Yeah, you've got to do all the side stuff. No, you can't take damage. There's no combat, you can't take damage in Discovery Tour. So just as the tribes have sought to dominate each other, so too would the kingdoms. Their struggle for territories led to the emergence of stronger kingdoms that conquered the weaker ones. In the 7th century, only a dozen kingdoms were left standing, and only 4 when the Vikings arrived in the late 8th century. They each held a slice of Anglo-Saxon Britain's people and land. Their portions were divided into hides, units of land, wealth and population. This manuscript is an extract from the tribal hidage, which detailed how many hides each tribe possessed. In the 1100s, the historian Henry of Huntingdon identified 7 of them as major kingdoms. Now, they were Kent, Essex, Sussex, Wessex, Mercia, East Anglia and Northumbria. In the 16th century, this supposed rule of 7 kingdoms was called the Heptarchy, Greek for rule of 7. So they actually split Great Britain into 7. Well, that wasn't until the 1100s that it was officially split, by the sounds of it. Okay. Where's the next? Next we have this one. We're getting there. What we got? 1, 2, 3, 6 more yellows and 1 blue to do, and then we start the quest. The English language changed a lot. Yeah, Old English is very different. I have seen and read parts of Old English before, and they are very, very different. Can I get out this way? Why is that there? So I wanted to see if I could get out this way, but actually that moves. Why does that move? I've got to move it now. Now I've seen it move, I've got to see why. Why would you move? I could not look. If it moves, I've got to check why. There's nothing in here. I would have said. Is there an Easter egg or something in here? Hang on. There's a room up top, isn't there? There's a room up there. That's why that moves. I really want to check out what's in the room. There is no combat. I can use first-person camera, but there's something there, and there's a room upstairs. Yeah, money's not an issue, to be honest. You'll find that pretty quickly. Money isn't an issue. Right, let's see if we can get up. I've got to see where that door is now. Don't know if I can't get to it. Yeah, I don't think I can get up there, can I? Because we can't break anything. And there's an iron gate in front of it, so I don't think we can actually get in there. It just seems a bit weird this is added in. Unless there's something you can do. Because I can't get through that iron gate. So, a little bit weird. Does feel a little bit different. Yeah, they are a lot. I think. Yeah, I'd like to say they did make them a little bit more historically accurate. I think also, when you do discovery bits, they do explain why they're different. So the church was in earlier, explained that they made it wider and more lit up and more brighter than it was in real life. But yeah, I would say it's definitely a lot more accurate, I would have said. Because there's no need to make it more gamey, is there, really? Because this is meant to be historical rather than made for the game player, if that makes sense. So this one's about the legendary brothers. The legend of the Anglo-Saxons of Britain begins with 2 brothers. I haven't heard this before, so I don't know what this is. Hengist and Horsa. And these were exiled warriors from Germanic lands. They were said to have brought the Anglo, Saxon and Jutish tribes to Britannia's shores. The paper, definitely. It was interesting we read about that and how the Vikings did it, because they wanted to have a... Was it the Vikings or was it the monks? I think it was the monks. They did it because they wanted to be able to remember what was happened previously. Okay, I don't know anything about these legendary brothers, so this will be interesting. Legend says that after they were banished, Hengist and Horsa travelled the sea with 3 boats. They had been recruited as mercenaries by Vortigern, ruler of the former Roman province of Britannia, to protect his people from invaders. In exchange, he offered to pay them a monthly sum. The brothers did as Vortigern asked in defeating his enemies. Once peace was won, Hengist invited his family and friends from beyond the sea to join him in Britannia. He told them there was a land enough for everyone, and that the people living there were too weak and gentle to resist them. More and more Germanic tribes came to live in Britannia, and the brothers soon asked Vortigern to increase his payments. They asked for more, and eventually Vortigern refused. In response, the Germanic tribes waged war against the all-British tribes, beginning the era of the Anglo-Saxons in Britain. According to the Venerable Bede, a famous monk and scribe of Northumbria, Hengist and Horsa are direct descendants of Woden, the Anglo-Saxon version of the Scandinavian Odin. Woden is portrayed here as the ancestor of kings. So, according to this famous monk and scribe from Northumbria, the Venerable Bede, he claims that Hengist and Horsa, the brothers that helped keep peace on Britannia until they weren't paid anymore, they were direct descendants of Woden, which was Odin. This is a book from the first arrival of the Saxons on Normandy, showing the god Woden as the ancestor of Saxon kings. It all links, doesn't it? Quite weirdly. Hearts just running around naked all the time. Oh, it is, yeah, absolutely. How they invented and changed some things. Can still be used. Yes, so that's Old English. That's not even Latin. That is actually Old English. If you can read it, you've done really well. Yeah, that's why you can't read it nowadays. Yeah, the English language kind of came from that. I don't know what changed that actually. We might learn that, I don't know. There is probably something that will maybe tell us how it changed and why. Yeah, it's not what you expect, is it? We've just unlocked Sigurd as a new character. Okay. Next up, we have a Sean-based discovery tool. Where he will say AC Valhalla once more to annoy Cass. And we'll see what he's going to talk about. So he's going to talk about Long Live the King, Alfred the Great's royal makeover, a privilege but mostly a challenge. This will talk about how they designed Alfred. And I know this is a bone of contention, because a lot of people didn't like how Alfred looked. And one gripe I had was in the screen where you found all the people you had to kill, you knew who was at the centre immediately. You know who the big boss was, because you could vaguely make out what it was. So this will be interesting to see how they actually came up with Alfred and why he looked the way he did. English is changing daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. It's constantly changing. Dictionaries always added to, things taken out, and there is a lot more slang from TikTok, from texting as well, is working its way into the dictionary now. Alfred a good king? From what I know of him, yes, but some of what I know, I've been proven wrong by this. Some of the misconceptions I had about the Vikings being a murderous bunch of people, this is telling me that's completely false, and they're actually quite strategic, and they used psychological warfare. So they weren't as evil and nasty as they're made out to be in history. You've got to think though, the history I know is from English history. If you were to go to Norway and research their history, it'll probably show a completely different side of the story. That's the difference. The history can only be taken from one side of the story, and that's the problem. And also, it's also the language barrier comes into play. Right. Anyway, let's listen to Sean.
As King Alfred is an historical figure, artists and modellers had a lot of documentation to help with his design. With pre-established features, age, height, backstory kept as accurate as possible, his appearance had to represent his royal demeanour, but also his weakened state. He suffered from Crohn's disease. This contrast was made through the design of his clothes, hair, and facial features. As one of the main characters in AC Valhalla, seen up close in multiple cinematics, it was imperative to design every detail meticulously. So much so that it took 10 days to design his hair.
Wow. So they designed Alfred as close to historically correct as they possibly could. But even in doing so, they had to take into account his Crohn's disease, and they had to take into account his age and his history and everything else. But they still spent 10 days making the hair right. That's mad. 10 days on the hair. I think they did a good job with Alfred. Like I said, my only criticism of Alfred was really the fact you could make him out as the big bad boss quite early on. Once you meet him within the story, you knew it was going to be him at the end because you could see the features. And I think that's the only issue I had with him as a character. And it was definitely in the text. You do a little bit. It depends if you take further history or not. So when you do general history, you learn a little bit. And if you do GCSE English, which is your last 2 years at school before you do A levels, well, back when I did it, you did learn more. Oh yeah, we learned about, well, my little boy's 6 and he's learned about the Great Fire of London already. Yeah, they're not brilliant at hiding their antagonists, absolutely. Okay. Sean's job is done. So, we are moving on to... I want to grab that one, don't I? And then, I've got to come backwards. Right, we're going to head there first. We've now unlocked Rebecca Crane as a character as well. Also, I don't know if anyone is aware, if you've got the DLC Season Pass, I meant to say Season Pass, not DLC. If you've got the Season Pass of Valhalla and you do Discovery Tour, there are some exclusive rewards for doing it as a Season Pass holder. Obviously all cosmetic, as always, but if that's the kind of thing that you like, there are some exclusive rewards. We have unlocked them, I think, already. Okay, we're heading up here. Let's have a look. I'll quickly mention, only because I've just remembered it's popped in my head. So yesterday we learnt about riding on horseback and fighting on horseback, and that didn't really happen. Anglo-Saxons didn't really fight on horseback. They would ride to the battle and then dismount. Now I know there was a lot of criticism on social media for the lack of fighting on horseback within the game, and I didn't know how true it was that they didn't fight very often until we did this. So in theory, the reason they didn't add it was because of the historical significance that the Anglo-Saxons didn't really use horses in combat, which would make sense. But I know there was a lot of criticism when the game came out that there wasn't more combat on horseback. You learn a little, yeah, we learn a bit. You learn a bit, and then you can learn more as you go to further education. Why do modern day people act like Vikings are a myth? I don't know anyone that acts like Vikings are a myth. Everyone knows about Vikings, but what we're taught is completely different than what this has told us. What we're taught is they were a murderous bunch of people that raped and pillaged and destroyed everything in their way. This has shown us a different side where they did pillage and destroy villages, but it was a psychological warfare to make people afraid of them, to intimidate them. They wouldn't fight unless they had to, kind of thing. Whereas we learn a different side of it. But again, it's two sides of the story. So bishops, a divided duty. Anglo-Saxon bishops were far more than religious leaders in their given territories. They were also political elites. Sometimes they found themselves caught between two roles. Thanks to the English teacher, I don't know about the Industrial Revolution. Wow, that's cool. It's amazing what you can learn by playing a video game. That's the amazing thing. She's the only English person. Wow. Okay, Christian bishops were responsible for guiding the faithful in their diocese towards salvation. They ensured that the sacred rites were performed in their communities during marriages, funerals, and masses. Through the sacraments, bishops could channel the grace of God to every Christian. Christianity and the church were considered one and the same, and the bishop held the church's power in his domain. However, a bishop's religious duties sometimes conflicted with his earthly ones. Anglo-Saxon bishops were members of the ruling elite, and it was in their interest to protect and preserve that elite. What was best for the elite was not always what was best for the common people, the faithful Christians in the diocese. Bishops were also representatives of the Roman Church, initially a foreign institution. At the same time, there were private councils to Anglo-Saxon kings, expected to help enforce and expand their dominion. Bishops served multiple masters, and sometimes they could be caught between their duty to one and their duty to another. However, kings also had a duty to God. In this illustration, the king visits St. Cuthbert, who in life had been the Bishop of Lindisfarne, but the king comes to the saint and not the other way round suggests that the saint is the more powerful of the two. It is painted to emphasise the influence of the church over secular authorities. So the whole point of this is the king has to travel to see the saint, rather than St. Cuthbert going to the king. So it's to show the church has more power than the king did, which is true. And even it's only in probably the last 100 years or so, maybe a little bit further back than that, the church started to have less power, especially in Britain. I know in some countries the churches still hold a lot of power, but in England it was only more recent that he didn't. They still have a lot of money, they own a lot of land, but they don't have as much power anymore. You never understood what a bishop's role is. The reason Roman culture was heavily influenced in England, for a start, would be because they came across and took over England. That's why we have the Roman ruins and things here. We have old Roman roads and stuff that they built. So the Romans colonised England long before this happened. We then built on top of old Roman settlements and stuff. So a lot of the castles and things and fjords were built on top of old Roman buildings and old Roman ruins. That's why you see the Roman ruins a lot in Valhalla. Yeah, there's a lot to thank for these people that kept these kind of records, but they weren't artists or painters. A lot of the people that kept the records were the church. That's the big thing. The church, every monk in the church and every nun in the church could read and write. And they could read and write Latin and Old English, and that was the point. They had the power because they could read, they could interpret the law the way they wanted to interpret. And as this picture dictates, the king has the power, he doesn't really, the church has all the power. And like I say, that's still true in a lot of places today. The church has a lot to say about what happens. And I'm not anti-church, I'm not anti-Christian, I'm not anti any religion, I enjoy learning about different religions. But they do have more power than people realise. And they definitely did hundreds of years ago. Okay, what have we got here? There's a group of people, I'm a bit worried about them. Church power structure. This will just explain probably what I've just been saying. So the church divided the Christian world into dioceses, each overseen by a bishop. The bishop was charged with ruling the diocese and ensuring the spiritual care of the faithful living within. So the church in Anglo-Saxon Britain dated back to the Roman era, centuries before. It was the sole surviving imperial institution on the island. So the Romans brought the church to Britannia. Its structure, however, continued to change long after the Romans left. The departure of the Romans from the territory in the 5th century upset the power structure of the church. When Anglo-Saxon Britain became Christian, it seemed at first that each of the kingdoms would have their own bishop. This meant that some bishops ended up controlling enormous amounts of people and land. Too much. Theodore of Tarsus, the Archbishop of Canterbury, managed to set things right. He reorganised the bishops, splitting the colossal diocese of York into 3 parts. When the Scandinavian Great Heathen Army reached the shores of Anglo-Saxon Britain, there were roughly 16 dioceses and 2 archdioceses on the island. They can be seen on the map. So, who was it? I forgot the name. Theodore of Tarsus, the Archbishop of Canterbury, actually reorganised the diocese and how the church controlled Britain at the time. So in doing so, he split it further. So Lindisfarne is up the top. That was known as Lindisfarne. Then you had Hexham. This was York, but this was split as well. With Lindsey, Lichfield, Hereford, Worcester, Leicester, Elmham, Dunwich, London, Rochester, Canterbury, Selsey, Winchester, Sherborne. Some of these names are still around today. Some aren't quite the same anymore. Leicester is obviously still Leicester. and Leicestershire, but some of them have changed. Did Old English sound different? From what I know it did, yeah. Or you want to give you all learning about UK culture and US history, UK culture and US culture. There's a lot to learn, that's the thing. And you've really got to have an open mind. So you can read one text about some history and you'll read a second one and they'll completely contradict each other, because that's how history is. There is no right or wrong of how it happened. You always have more than one side of the story. And because the church generally kept the records, they always made out they were right in most instances. They weren't to blame for anything, and that's the big thing to take into consideration. The Vikings came to England to live there. They'd run out of space on Norway because the ways their rules were for handing down land. If they had more than one child, that second child wouldn't be entitled to anything, because their older sibling would get it all when the parents passed away. So the Vikings came to England. It wasn't necessarily to raid, it was to farm, to live, because they had run out of space, basically. Frontier contracts, you mean the frontiersmen? I think there's 6, gaming. There's no right or wrong simply because of... Yeah. Yeah, everything you read will be biased towards someone or another. And as long as you keep an open mind when you're reading up on the history, you're fine. You can't take one thing you read as gospel. You've got to read more than one to get a bigger picture of what happened. Okay, we are nearly ready to go and do quest number 6. I know there's been a lot of running around and talking before we've actually got anywhere. But we've cleared the whole town nearly. I say nearly. A couple more to do. And then we can start quest number 6. My thinking was to try and finish this tonight, but we're an hour in, just under, and we haven't even done the first quest because we've been clearing Wessex. That's how much there is to see and do. Okay, so let's try and find this next one. It's round, is it inside or is it round the corner? I think it's in the church. You can't get in that way. Where's the door? I need a door. That's not a door either. Oh, he's going to make it really difficult to get to where I need to get to, isn't it? Right, that's the one we need. Yeah, they're not small contracts to do. Yeah, they do take time. Okay, baptism and victory. King Alfred won an important battle at Edington. However, it was his tactics after the battle that showed his political genius. By having Guthrum, his vanquished enemy, baptised, Alfred cemented a lasting victory. So this is all about Alfred and what he got Guthrum to agree to when he surrendered. So by having Guthrum baptised, Alfred forced his old foe to conform to the spiritual system that Alfred followed, Christianity. Alfred used that system to his advantage. He cunningly chose himself to be Guthrum's godfather, and making himself Guthrum's spiritual guide. Alfred created ties of symbolic kinship between them. That's really interesting. So Guthrum, who tried to take away some of the land from Alfred, turned out to be Alfred's godson when he was baptised. That is very clever. However, baptism had political benefits for Guthrum as well. Being Alfred's godson gave him the status of a respected Christian leader. Guthrum was made King of East Anglia, a member of a small select circle of Anglo-Saxon monarchs. Guthrum's transformation as a Christian ruler was a political win for both the Viking and his godfather Alfred. This illustration depicts an idolised baptism scene from an epic poem, the Chanson d'Esprimont. Popular in later medieval England, it imagines the baptism of a character named Balaam, an Iberian royal messenger at the court of Emperor Charlemagne. So we did learn yesterday that Alfred gave Guthrum, when he was baptised, the land of East Anglia and told him he was king of it. But Alfred didn't actually own East Anglia. He didn't rule East Anglia. They had their own leader. I'm assuming Guthrum had to go in there and take it by force, would be my thinking. They didn't have school as we have today, no. Children will work. Their parents taught them. But yeah, it wasn't school as we know today. Most children worked, helped their mother or father, depending what it was they were doing, and were taught directly from their parents, which is why a lot of people couldn't read or write. It was only, like I say, it's only the monks and the nuns, and then the nuns and monks started teaching people over time because they wanted them to be able to understand the Christian values more. Okay, 2 more to go, and then we will start the quest. The Charles or Freeman, I don't know if I'm saying that first word right. They were the non-aristocratic subjects of the kingdom. They mostly worked in farming and agriculture, and there were many different social and economic classes within the group. The main factor that divided the class of freemen was how much land they owned. With land came wealth. The more land a churl had, the higher their social status, privileges and standard of living. At the bottom of the social ladder were chills? I don't even know if I'm saying about cures. Yeah, that one. I don't know. With very little land. Unable to provide food for their families, these freemen would have relied on their local lord to survive. In exchange for the noble support and protection, they would have been expected to work the lord's lands at least a few days a week. One rung up the ladder were the people who had enough land to support their families. These wealthier freemen would have worked for the lord on occasion to pay their rent. Finally, at the top of the ladder were people who had large tracts of land. I'm missing that word out on purpose now. They may not have been expected to work on the lord's lands. They would just use their superior wealth to pay the aristocrat for his protection instead. They could also provide him with different services, offering horses or food, cutting his hedges, putting out snares to catch hares or other animals, making offerings to the church on his behalf, running errands or mending fences with tools, such as this carpenter's axe head. This was a carpenter's axe head. So basically the lord had everything. Everyone else beneath the lord had to do things for him. And if he was on the lowest rung of the ladder, the smallest amount of land, you needed the lord's protection, so you'd work for the lord. If you was a little bit higher on the ladder and a bit more land, you would still work for the lord, but not so often. And if you was on a slightly higher rung of the ladder, and you had more land, instead of working for the lord, you actually paid him. That's the big difference. Okay, 1 more to go, and then I believe we're on to the next quest. Yeah, I think the shipment upgrades are definitely worth getting early. So this is about cook and kitchen. It is thought that cooking was mainly done by men in Anglo-Saxon households. However, women and children may have helped preparing food. For the rich and powerful, cooking would have been done by slaves. I did not know that. I thought women and children did it, but actually that's saying men did a lot of the cooking. In poorer and humbler Anglo-Saxon homes, the living room and the kitchen would have been one and the same. However, some wealthy freemen and aristocrats had their kitchens in a separate building next door. Pots and pans like this one were sometimes made of cast iron, but were mostly ceramic. Cooking could be done over a hearth, by suspending a pot above a fire, or by placing it directly on the embers. Meat may have been prepared by using a spit to grill it over the flames. That actually looks a decent frying pan. And that's actually in a museum in London, in the UK, in Winchester, as it is. But yeah, that's kind of, so similar way to what we do now in terms of shape and everything else. Let's not mention the dress here. Okay, so I believe if we now check the map, we should be done. Man created fire, so it makes sense that man did most of the cooking early on. I hadn't thought of it like that. Oh, I've got one left. I thought I'd done them all. There's one left over there. I just assumed the women and children did it. I don't know why I thought that. I just did. But yeah, surprising. But yeah, it does make sense in one aspect, I suppose. Man and fire. It's like man and barbecues. Generally, the majority of men are rubbish at barbecues, but they think they're good. This is where the problem comes in. Okay, so this is a Roman ruin. It's the first thing I'm guessing right away. It looks to be a Roman ruin. Let's find out. The city of Winchester. So this is the history of Winchester. has a long history stretching back centuries. In the Anglo-Saxon period, it was an important religious and political centre. When the Roman legions conquered southern Britain, they were said to have settled in an ancient meeting place of the Belgae tribe. The Romans built a town there and called it Venta Bergerum, or Market of the Belgae. Surrounded by stone walls, Venta Bergerum became a regional centre for centuries. After the Roman leaders left Britain, the Saxons invaded, claiming Venta Bergerum as their own. According to Bede the Venerable, the Northumbrian monk, the Saxons called it Uintancester, or the walled city of Uenta. After the territory was Christianised, Winchester became the seat of Bishop Wine. Bishop Wine was the first bishop to be consecrated in the Old Minster, the Anglo-Saxon cathedral of Winchester. Winchester, mapped here, was associated with the royalty of Wessex, and as it had been for both Romans and Saxons, was an important centre in Anglo-Saxon Britain. So we've two different people there. Bede the Venerable, who a lot of history comes from his writings. He was a monk, so he was one of these people that could read and write, and a lot of history does come directly from him and his writings. And the Bishop Wine being the first bishop. So this was the early medieval city of Winchester. So it does seem to be a pivotal place for a lot of people. The Romans used it before the Saxons got here, and then obviously the Vikings wanted it. So it's thought of men roasting the animals they hunted, because most men went to work, but before that it was men who cooked. You don't understand what an American is doing in England in the 12th century. Main game. Which American are you on about? You're on about Bassam, aren't you? I'm getting the name, make sure I get the names right. If you want about Bassam, because they're assassins, I suppose they would be all over the place. That's my only thinking. And who was the American in the main game? I want to make sure I'm talking about the right person for a start. I'm pretty sure you mean Bassam, don't you? Okay, we have finished Winchester. It took us an hour. Well, I can't remember it, to be honest. I remember quite a few of them. I don't remember that one. But then the world mysteries, some of them are Easter eggs. Bassam was Arabic. I did think he was. I knew he wasn't English. I couldn't think where he's from. But yeah, the mysteries, a lot of them are Easter eggs. So it could just be an Easter egg. It doesn't have to be historically correct. Okay, so Winchester is done. We're going to move on to Chapter 6, Alfred's Legacy. As I said, we're going to try and finish it tonight, but an hour in, we've just finished Winchester as all the discovery points. May not manage to finish it today, but we'll see. It may need one more stream, maybe, but we'll see how we get on. But it's definitely interesting. My conceptions of Vikings and how they lived has changed immensely just from reading what this says, what this has told us. And obviously I'm going to look into it a little bit more because I want to make sure I know what's correct and what isn't. But obviously they've done their homework. So I'll definitely be looking into a few more bits that I've learned from this as well. And I think that's the amazing thing. You know, video games do give you a massive amount of knowledge on some things. You hate that haircut. It's a monk's haircut. He hasn't got a choice. That's how he's forced to have his hair. So this is Alfred's legacy. I think it means we're playing as Alric still. So Brother Alric has found peace in Winwalder Abbey. When King Alfred comes with a request, he must answer the call. Probably got the name of the abbey wrong there.
Escaping the Isle of Ealing
so
relic.
This is 878 CE.
I was raised on a farm, then sent to the monastic school. So I had never seen anything else nor been anything else.
You've only just noticed the haircut.
I carried the weight of the souls of all my brothers and sisters in Christ, who had sacrificed.
I don't know why they have to have their hair cut that way. There must be a reason at the top of the head.
It was unbearable.
It has to be shaved, but I don't know what it is.
Weak and weary, I turned to my Lord and, as promised,
that's a good question, gaming. A very good question.
I will be grateful to the end of my days.
Brother Elrich, I have need of you.
That's King Alfred. Alfred has
Of course,
definitely
my
grown
king.
in confidence.
I serve at your command.
Definitely see the
Follow me at
change.
once.
Right, we've got to follow Alfred. Oh, that's your horse. Sorry, Alfred. I was going to get on Alfred's horse then. The king's horse.
I apologize.
Right, we've got a new learning. There's not many of these left to learn, I'm sure. And this is the Ealdorman. So it's believed that the first Ealdorman, or a class of Anglo-Saxon lords, were members of the kin or family of a chieftain, or later a king. The first Ealdorman could have been the most powerful and charismatic followers of a chief. Flighting must have been completely different. Of course, yeah, it would be completely different. You'd rather get the haircut. In the time, Ealdormen came to be seen as representatives of royal power. They were members of the Witton, a royal council. In some cases, the title may have been inherited. A thane or a nobleman of good renown, a nobleman of good renown could also become an Ealdorman via appointment. Each Ealdorman ruled a region of variable size, in which, according to the king's will, he could levy a tax or assemble and lead the fjord, a sort of militia. These powers, among others, could sometimes lead an Ealdorman to exercise a bit more power than he should. A weak king sometimes had to deal with more independent Ealdormen before they became a threat to his crown. It's likely that Ealdormen were among the wealthiest members of society. They could have possessed objects of great value, like this gilded belt mount. Words are getting stuck. That's a gilded belt mount. Kind of just a bit fancy, isn't it, really? But again, it's anything shiny, silver, gold. It's a show of power. The more money you had, the more power you had.
But you'll understand I needed this matter to remain discreet.
Please, no apologies are necessary.
You see, time
Can't
is
see
of
where
the
I'm going.
essence, Eldridge. I'm at war. At war with the Danes, yes, but also with the nobles of my realm.
Surely you would not go to war against our fellows?
Not anymore. It is a political war I speak of. A war of the minds.
I'm not sure why I stopped there.
Stubborn ones at that.
These soldiers are going ahead in my way.
Well,
these nobles refuse to understand that we must be united if we are to remain victorious over the Danes. And a united front means one person must speak for the many. But they see it as a grab for power, as if giving me the upper hand means undermining their authority. All I do only for the survival of our land. Our people.
I had to stop because I didn't know which way I was going.
Whether it be Wessex, Northumbria, Mercia, even East Anglia. Our faith and our values are the same.
it is not me you must convince, my king. Without you, we would already be a faded memory, overwritten by the heathen's bloodshed.
It's our victory over Guthrum and the other Danes has given the Witton misplaced confidence. I cannot let their arrogance be our downfall. We need to be prepared for the next attack and all the ones to come.
What role could I play in convincing them?
You attended my court for many years. You know my heart. And I know you are loyal to our Lord above all others, as do they. They will not listen to me, but they cannot doubt our Lord's will. We need the bishop. Convince him to speak in my favor at the Witton. The other lords will have no choice but to approve my requests.
I am certain God will aid me in this endeavor.
One thing I do enjoy, and it's one thing I think they've done amazingly well, and they've done it in previous Assassin's Creed games, as we found while playing the older games as well, is that the noise you make on different parts of the ground. So when you're on a horse, the noise difference between a stone that you're riding across to mud is a complete different of sound, and I think that's fantastic. If you had beers, an Ealdorman mean the chief of a clan or region. Yes, basically, yeah. An Ealdorman means the chief of a region or clan. Yeah. Those for Humward was an Ealdorman. Yeah, it meant he was in charge of that specific area. Cut hair as a sign of religious devotion or humility. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Thank you very much for joining us, Keller. Hopefully we'll see you again. Have a good night. And thank you once more. I did not know they cut the hair as a sign of religious devotion or humility. I didn't realise that. They're portraying a historically accurate Alfred, or an Assassin's Creed version of Alfred right now. This is a historically accurate version of Alfred. This is what he was dealing with. So basically, as we've rode with him to where we've gone to, he's explaining that some of these Ealdormen are getting a bit too big for their boots, and he feels they're preparing to try and usurp him as king and take away his power. That's his concern, and he wants to use Elric as a member of the church, because the church was all-knowing and all-speaking and was God's voice. He felt that they would listen to Elric because of his association with God. But also Elric was loyal to King Alfred. So this is about the Treaty of Guthrum. Some years after the Battle of Edington and the Truce of Wedmore, a peace treaty was made between West Saxon King Alfred, between the West Saxon King Alfred representing the Witton, Royal Council, and King Guthrum Ethelstan representing the people of East Anglia. Among other things, the agreement fixed the boundary between the Anglo-Saxon and Scandinavian territories, eventually named the Danelaw. It also determined the equivalence of the free men from both sides in terms of the weirgeld, that is, the cost to be paid if a person were killed. Although it stated that hostages were to be exchanged to secure cross-border trade, this treaty did not put an end to the Scandinavian raiding activities. Still, it was an important step made by Alfred, for it granted him a respite from attacks. This allowed him to better reorganise his realm and extend his influence in the neighbouring kingdom of Mercia, which eventually led to the unification of England. So, although giving Guthrum East Anglia didn't actually stop the raiding from the Scandinavians, but it gave him time, and that's what he needed. I think so far, from what we've learned about Alfred, he's a very clever man. There was a lot of things he did that were probably not the norm at the time, but he comes across as quite a clever person. He kind of was very strategic in the way he dealt with things. You see a lot of UNN in Old English letters, yeah. The story's good. If you in Assassin's Creed 3, it's up to you. You've got to do all the side stuff at some point. So I left the Frontier till last, to be honest. Yeah, the Frontier was the last base I did. So it depends on how you feel, really. You can always come back to it. You can always do a little bit of story, then go back. Right, what else are we going to see here? So we're with Alfred. Oh, we're actually back in Winchester. So there is no discovery bits to do in Winchester. We've done them all. It's just story only for this chapter 6. Soldiers were in the way a lot that time. Right, let's follow him. There's a new learning opportunity. The Thanes. So Thanes were the companions and retainers of people such as the king, members of the royal kin, aldermen, or even bishops. It seemed that the term Thane related to a broad sense of aristocratic identity. The fact that Latin texts identified them as milites, which meant warriors, offers a good hint of what Thanes usually did in life. Thanes were well trained to fight. They would act as bodyguards in peace or at war. The relatively high quality of their military gear was thus partially explained by their function in society. See, for example, this iron seax, or dagger. In the West Saxon King Ian's Code of Laws, circa 7th, early 8th century, a Thane was usually a landowner. However, Thanes who neglected their military service could be punished with a fine. So this was an iron long-bladed knife. Again, because of time, it doesn't look anything like it probably would have done when it was first used. But Thanes were bodyguards, or people who protected the Lord, or in this case the king. So he's got two Thanes with him.
Since the reconstruction began, I'll lead you. This city is a superb example of the birds I want to build all over Wessex, and eventually all across the land. With strongholds like Winchester no more than a day's ride from every village, the common people will be protected.
I do find it weird how King Alfred can walk through Winchester and no one batters an eyelid.
Any great nation will crumble when its people are divided.
Yet some of the city's walls are built on top of Roman laid stone.
You have a sharp eye, Elrich. You see, the heathens are less likely to notice our fortifications if the walls we build them on have been there all along.
He's got a point. That's a very good point. The Vikings weren't like to notice any new buildings if the building was already there originally.
King Alfred in our street. Welcome. Oh, welcome, Lord.
Okay, that voice sounds a
There he
little
is.
bit fake.
Think I can ask His Highness to fix up my outhouse?
Some of these people don't sound right.
If you don't want his guards to knock you over.
I do that well enough on my own.
Yeah,
I take infinite pride
it's
in
a
our
bit weird
Winchester,
him just walking
the
straight through the
first
street like
church
this.
of my kingdom.
It's stunning. Though I admit, my heart yearns more for the simple comfort of your private sanctuary at Chippenham.
They serve different purposes. As the heart of the Diocese of Winchester, this church must welcome all who seek our Lord. I hope to expand it one day, but my priorities lie elsewhere for now.
You will have... My lord! My lord!
It's a little
What is
girl.
it, child?
My mum is ill. She won't please. Oh, please help her.
Take me to her.
So Alfred's actually asked the little girl to take him to her mum. I wasn't expecting
She's at
that.
the infirmary. I told her. I said, Mum, you're burning up. But she didn't want to leave the house. So I took her hand and we walked to see the
I will
sisters.
say,
But they say
one
there's
thing I
nothing
probably
they
would
can
criticise
do.
Ubisoft
Then
for when
I
it comes
saw
to
you,
voice
and
acting.
I knew you could
Children's
help.
voices
You're
don't
the
seem
king.
right.
My mum's
It's
told
like,
me you're close to God.
You are closer than me.
I don't know, there's
According to
something
the
about
very
children's
words
voices that I've
spoken
never
by our
quite agreed with in Assassin's Creed. Their voices always
I've
seem off.
never seen him up close.
Like older than they should be.
Handsome man.
So this is the Nun's Minster.
Have I died, Lord?
And Thanes are doing
King
my head in now.
Alfred's come to help us. Bless the Lord. We are saved.
I don't understand how transgender people exist in past lives. No, I don't know, to be honest. They obviously
Elrich,
did, to some
in your
degree.
days as a healer, have
But
you
then back
seen
then they
this
probably
type
hid
of
it as
ailment
well.
before?
I would have to
Yeah,
take
do
a
all the fine
closer
stuff in
look,
Boston Gaming while
but
you're
I
there.
trust our sisters can provide the best care for her.
Oh, my king? Am I dreaming?
Shh. Save your strength.
Oh, I can feel myself drifting away.
I will see that your daughter is well taken care of, should the need arise.
So I don't know how
May the
historically
Lord bless
accurate
you
this
and
is.
keep you.
In terms of Alfred, would he
The
have been
Lord
like
make
this
his
to the
face
people?
shine upon you and be gracious to you. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, thank you, my king. Thank you.
King Alfred's come to help us. Bless the Lord. We are saved.
You are a good king.
I try to be there for my people. I cannot bear watching more innocent souls perish.
Okay, we've got a new learning opportunity. Hopefully this will explain a little bit more about Alfred. Yeah, the underground tunnels you're going to have to do as well in Assassin's Creed 3 gaming. They're not too bad. Once you start, you've got to sort of remember where you're heading, keep looking at the map. I think you'd be alright to do them. So these are official accounts paint Alfred the Great's ascension to the throne as a valiant time of hardship and struggle. Historians are now revisiting these documents with a critical eye, since many of them were commissioned by Alfred himself. So a lot of what we know about Alfred the Great and his time as king, these documents that were written by nuns and bishops and monks were commissioned and paid for by Alfred. So again, if anything in history, they're going to be one-sided. They're not going to be as straightforward. This is what happened. It's not how it's going to be. Soon after Alfred became king, every single Anglo-Saxon kingdom, with the exception of Wessex, was controlled by Scandinavians. Far from being the last bastion of freedom in the kingdom, it now seems likely that Alfred, like everyone else, paid tribute to the Vikings and became a client king. That is, a king who remained in power so long as they pleased the Scandinavian overlords. Becoming a client king was likely a necessity rather than a choice. Alfred was as much a part of the political landscape as anyone else at that time. He was, however, the first to successfully free himself and his people from the constraints imposed by foreign rulers. This was, and still is, a feat worthy of respect. This silver penny was minted in the first decade of King Alfred's reign. Today these coins can be worth up to 20,000 British pounds. Yeah, you're never going to find one in your change, are you? That's the thing. So this was an Alfredian silver penny. So although Alfred was a very much someone amongst his people who wanted to help, once the Vikings came, he wasn't necessarily the true king. They had a lot more power than he did, or so it seems. But it was something he had to do to retain power, which is quite an interesting way of looking at it.
I've seen my vision come to life, and yet we are still in harm's way. That's why I need the Witton's approval. We must build as many burhs, our strongholds, as necessary, spread across the land, with each of these strongholds overseen by trained men, able to protect us when the time comes.
So he's planning for an invasion.
I have. And yet I am being stifled by the very men supposed to support me. Thanks to our mills, I can ensure my people aren't out of bread. That is, only if I keep away from the loaves. I'm more fit to rule than to bake, I'm afraid.
I think there's a little Easter egg there, isn't there? Because when we find him, I hope I'm not spoiling this for anyone, when we see him in Valhalla, I'm trying to say without spoiling anything, he's baking bread at one point in the game. And he's just said he's not very good at baking. So I think there's a little Easter egg there. I'm not sure where we're heading. I think we're meant to be meeting the Witton.
We've reached the bishop's residence. This is where I leave you.
Yeah, we're going to go and
Nobles are waiting
speak.
for me at the Witton Hall. I'm counting on you, Elrich.
I will get his approval, my lord.
We need to
Our
get the bishop
future
to come and
depends
support
on
King
it.
Alfred. That's our task. We're to convince Bishop Dean Wolf to side with the king against the Witton. For the Witton then to fall into line because they'll support the bishop because he's the messenger of God. It does show, and I don't know how true this relationship between Alfred and King Alfred was. I don't know if it was a real life relationship, but it's something that's made up for this tour. But I will say, if this was true, Alfred definitely believed quite a lot in Elric.
Brother, I'm looking for the bishop.
What for?
It is a subject I need to discuss with the bishop alone, at once.
Suit yourself. He's over there reading the day's missives.
He's over there reading the day's missives. Where is he? Ah. New learning. So this is about the king and clergy. The Christianization of Anglo-Saxons rested largely on the shoulders of aristocracy. Why can I not do my words out tonight? Aristocracy, especially kings and queens. Their influence, wealth, and military might supported missionaries as they spread the word of God across England. I'm struggling with my words out, and I don't know why. Alright, let's try again. The social elite did not contribute to the missionaries purely out of Christian charity. To give aid to the church was to invest in a powerful ally. But even as the church's influence flourished throughout the Anglo-Saxon territories, a lot of power remained under royal authority. For example, bishops, abbots and abbesses, too, could be chosen from within the royal entourage. It benefited a king to select the high-ranking members of the clergy, but those whom he appointed would owe him a debt. However, the king's power in these appointments was still limited. The selection process involved negotiation, confrontation, and compromise between church leaders and the throne. Here is an illustration of King Oswald of Northumbria, a sovereign who greatly supported the clergy. The church declared him a saint after his death. So he supported the church over anything else, and they made him a saint for it. Okay, let's go and speak to the bishop. So far in this, we've done some fighting, we've had to convince people to do
Father,
things,
your king needs you.
and we need another
It is customary for people to introduce themselves.
try and convince him
young man.
again.
I'm Brother Elrich of Runquoda Abbey.
You saved our precious relic from the Isle of Ely.
Yes, I did. It was such a long time ago.
Yet here you stand. What brings you to Winchester?
King Alfred seeks the Lord's support to implement his laws with the nobles.
Far be it for any man to speak in the name of the Lord. What are these laws King Alfred is pushing?
Oh, we've got to make decisions. King Alfred requires more control over the kingdom. King Alfred claims to be the sole ruler. I don't know what the true answer is, and we always try and tell the truth, and it worked previously when with Gunhilda trying to convince the other clans to join us. He needs more control over the kingdom, that is true, because he's trying to build burhs to try and fend off any Viking incursion. I don't think he claims to be the sole ruler, so I think I will go with the more control.
If he is to protect Wessex against the heathen threat, King Alfred needs the lords to trust his strategies, to ensure we will withstand other attacks.
What kind of strategies?
I think that was the better answer. King Alfred wants to surrender to the heathens. King Alfred wants to build burhs. Well, we know that's what he wants. Fortified cities, burhs. That's what he wants.
He wants to extend the stronghold system he began with Winchester. He sees these burhs as the best answer against the heathen attacks, a way for every man and woman in the land to seek refuge.
But how can I be sure that I will be helping our Lord and not merely supporting one man's pride?
Oh, good question. King Alfred wishes to unite people through faith, or King Alfred was chosen by God. I think we'll go for unite people through faith. We've seen that he baptized the Vikings, so we'll go with that.
King Alfred is a man of God. He wishes to unite the kingdoms through common faith in our Lord.
I can't deny that having a pious man at the helm of our kingdom has helped us spread the good word indeed. You have made a convincing case, brother. I believe Alfred is genuine in his intentions.
I've no idea what happens if you don't do the right answers.
And come to a decision.
I don't know if you put completely different answers, what would happen. I always try and answer truthfully, so I'm not sure. Okay. Meanwhile, while Alfred is pleading his cause at the Witton. Wondered why it went really dark then, I couldn't do anything. So Alfred is currently at the Witton with the other nobles trying to plead his case. We've convinced the bishop that he needs to talk to the other clergy, see what they say. But I think we answered properly, I think we gave the right answers. Black screens worry me. I always wonder if it's crashed. I can hear voices though. But yeah, you can definitely see the trust Alfred places in Elric. But then you can also see that Elric's... what he managed to do at the Isle of Ely, getting the relic out of there before the heathens got there, meant a lot to the clergy.
My fellow good men, please heed my words.
What more can you possibly have to say?
We won the war! Let us lick our wounds and go home to our wives!
We've won a single battle, by the skin of our teeth. We must be ready when the heathens come back, because they will.
What if we just pay them to leave?
Paying the Danes tribute will only encourage them to stay and ask for more. Can't you see? I'm proposing a system that will allow us to be protected at all times. An army year-round. Not just for my kingdom's sake, but for all of our sakes.
Oh, your ambitions are very clear, Lord Alfred.
Indeed. Can we trust you to lead our men?
This is preposterous. Have I not earned your trust?
My king, Bishop Danewulf wishes to speak.
Bishop, please.
I have come to voice the Church's support. Our Lord's will is in alignment with Alfred's intentions. If you are men of faith, you will give your assent.
Noble men, what say you?
As we said earlier,
Despite my doubts, I will not go against our
the
Lord's
church has a lot of
wishes.
power.
You have my support.
And ours as well, for now.
Let it be known that the Witton agreed.
So the Witton
To
didn't
prove my
agree,
good faith, allow me to demonstrate the efficacy of my strongholds.
but the bishop's
Please follow me.
word is what they believed in. Feathers, you just need to collect them. You can get maps for them as well, so it makes it easier. All the collectibles you can obtain maps for. Gaming. But yeah, so the only reason the Witton agreed... Oh, we're Alfred. Oh, okay, we are now controlling Alfred for the first time. One of the key weapons Alfred used to rally people to his banner was the idea that Anglo-Saxons formed one people. The gens Anglorum, or Anglesin, in other words, the English. So the people were called the Anglorum, or the Anglesin, which meant English. During his reign, Alfred promoted the idea of common people. The English, proud and faithful members of the church, were distinguished from others. This distinction became clear with the treaty between Alfred and Guthrum in the mid-880s, which referred to an agreement between all the English race and the people which is in East Anglia. In other words, Alfred was enhancing his authority by linking himself to the idea of a Christian people that was set apart from the rest. The map shows the territorial separation of early medieval Britain, following the treaty between Alfred and Guthrum. So in red, this is a Scandinavian-controlled area that came to be called Danelaw. It's quite a big area. Remember, he only gave them originally this area over here, East Anglia, but they actually controlled East Midlands and the north. In green, the lands that would eventually correspond to the early English kingdom, which was formed from the union of two realms, Mercia and Wessex. Right.
I'll take them to the beacon. When my watchmen respond, they will see that this system works. Elrich, I am immensely grateful for what you've done for me today.
Of course. I am honored you chose me.
Tell me, how could I ever repay my gratitude?
Well, I must admit, I feel like my purpose is elsewhere.
What do you mean?
I've lived with the Norsemen. I've built bonds with them. Seeing Addleston, Guthrum, baptized, showed me my true mission. I understand their ways, their thinking. The Danes are not ultimately lost, my lord. We can still save them, convert them. But I can't do it from Runcorn Abbey.
Your devotion is inspiring. I'll see to it that you be relocated to another minster, Elrich. I have just the one in mind.
Thank you, my lord.
So Elric feels that after his time spent with Guthrum, he would be better served by actually helping convince more Vikings to be baptised, by the sounds of it. I would guess Alfred intends on sending them to East Anglia. That would be my guess, because that would make the most sense. Interesting that we are actually Alfred for this, but I think we've got to light the beacons. I'm assuming that's what's going to happen.
I'll go.
Yep.
My king! You can't. It's beneath you.
If I won't do it myself, then I cannot expect my people to.
Okay, so we need to climb up as Alfred and light the beacon. His men were telling him he couldn't because it's beneath him. But his point was, well, if I can't do it, then how would I expect anyone else to do it? Which he's got a point. He does lead by example. He wants to at least lead by example. You're still here, Kath. Okay, so as Alfred, we'll light the beacon.
May this light be the symbol of a new beginning. The people will rise and take back the land that is rightfully theirs.
The Witton agreed to follow King Alfred's plans. The land of Wessex will see burghs rise to protect its people. Meanwhile, Brother Elric rides towards Yorvik, where he can guide more Danes towards the Christian faith. I was wrong. I thought he was going to send him to East Anglia, but he's been sent to Yorvik, which we know becomes a Dane stronghold. And that is Alfred's legacy. We've unlocked Valka. So that is chapter 6 complete. We will start chapter 7. And this is New Life, New Lands. This is going to be 885. So this is what, 6 years after this? No, 7 years after this. And we're going to be in Yorvik. 14 years have passed. Thorstein and Gunhild are now wealthy merchants in the bustling hub of trade between Vikings and Anglo-Saxons known as the city of Yorvik. Begin what should be a perfect day. So actually, I don't know why I got my numbers wrong there. That says 14 years later. So Thorstein and his wife are actually now wealthy. So it shows that their move from their homeland to Britain was for the right reasons in the end. They actually did it, and it worked. Whereas most people would leave their land, try and make it work in Britain, and it probably wouldn't. But they seem to have been the lucky ones, and especially the fact they're in the main trading hub of Yorvik. Yorvik in the game is quite an interesting place. And that looks like that's where we're going. I don't know if there's any discovery missions there. If there is, I don't think we'll get this finished tonight, unfortunately. But if there isn't, we might. It's going to depend on how long the story is. We've got about another half an hour before I'll start struggling, and the painkillers and stuff will start kicking in to the point. Eyes may not stay open, so we'll see how we do. This is chapter 7 of 8. So we didn't get to control Alfred for very long. It was literally just to climb up. I did like how he was though as a character. The fact that he wanted to light the beacon himself because he didn't want the people to do it when he wouldn't do it himself. Even though his thanes thought it was below him. So new life, new lands. Thorstein and Gunhild have made a name for themselves and are living comfortably in Copper Gates. There's already a sense that something's going to go wrong, isn't there? Trig, their former slave, is to be married to an Anglo-Saxon woman. A union that has raised tempers on both sides. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So we're now in 885 CE.
The sky should remain clear for this afternoon.
It's a shame they did not marry at dawn. Light brings beauty to the fore.
Is she anyone I know?
You can bid her good day the next time you spy a mirror.
Never fear. I'll have plenty of time for beauty while I help Edith prepare. You should not let Trig labor alone too long, lest he fail his husbandly duties at a crucial moment.
I need to spend some time in the shop. And then there's the matter of your gift.
The closest kept secret in all our 20 years of marriage. I'm impressed you've been able to hold your tongue.
You surprise me every day. I thought it time I returned the favor, at least once.
You already have. I may have grumbled when you woke me, but the sunrise was especially beautiful.
Tomorrow then, as well?
Let's get through today first.
So it looks like Thorstein has truly left his raiding days behind. Interesting that his former slave that he released from service, once he agreed to come with them, is getting married. A great number of diverse groups made up the so-called Great Heathen Army. Did they all come from Scandinavia? Recent research suggests this was not the case. The Scandinavians could have been accompanied by descendants from Viking settlements in Francia, Friesland, the Scottish Islands and Ireland, lured by the promise of wealth and new social opportunities. The settlers came from both common folk and aristocracy, but all of them shared the hope of building a new life. Women were certainly present. Some travelled independently, while others followed and supported their families or households on their journey. Like everyone else, women put their shoulders to the wheel to build a new life in the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. This map illustrates the alleged origin of the vast majority of the Nordic settlers. The turquoise arrows correspond to Danish and, to some extent, Frisian movements of population. These letters correspond to regions. So Norway is the A up here. B is Denmark. C is Frisia. England is D. And then this Irish, Scottish. And the island, Pictland, and the Kingdom of Dublin. The town of Yorvik is identified with number 1. So Yorvik is here. But it wasn't just the Danes that came across. Okay, there's lots to do here by looking at this straight away. Let's have a quick look on the map. How much is quite a lot to learn, yeah. I guarantee you now we are not finishing this today. It took us an hour to clear Winchester. So I would highly expect this not to finish. We've got about another 20 minutes. So what we'll do is we'll do as much as we can, obviously clear the gold and the blues along the way. Do a bit of the main story as well. But we'll probably have to finish this on another evening stream. Obviously Guardians of the Galaxy is the plan for tomorrow evening. Maybe Thursday evening. We may come back and finish this Thursday evening. But our first one is actually just here. So this is Yorvik, Conquest to Boom. After the Scandinavians seized and settled in Yorvik, which is now called York, in 866, archaeological evidence suggests that the town saw a period of great change and growth, which is a boom. Before its conquest, Yorvik, as the Anglo-Saxons called it, was made of distant scattered buildings. After it was taken by the Vikings, archaeological evidence suggests that new houses were erected and grouped together in an organised way. Further research suggests that around the same time that the Vikings settled on both sides of the River Ouse, there was a giant leap in population in the area. These finds reflect Yorvik's development as an urban centre during this period. This helmet is among the things left behind by Yorvik's inhabitants, a reminder that even in times of growth and prosperity, war was still a part of life. That is a really nice, well-kept helmet in mint condition. You don't see things that survive that kind of age to still be in mint condition. It's an incredible find. So Yorvik became a massive hub for all types of people. And this is the market of Coppergate. It's quite interesting, Yorvik is now York. I didn't realise that was the connection. The town of Yorvik was a major commercial international centre. Though part of its success to its thriving crafts market, the neighbourhood of Coppergate was a vibrant hub of culture, craftsmanship and trade. A visitor to Coppergate's market would discover goods and treasures from every corner of the known world. They would also find craftsmen and craftswomen of every kind. Potters, weavers, silversmiths, blacksmiths, leathersmiths, bead makers, glass makers, comb makers, sculptors of wood, horn, antler, stone, bone, and more. This iron lock and these leather shoes are just a few of the crafts they could encounter. They might also find slaves at the market, for slavery played a large role in the social and economic structures of the medieval Scandinavians and Anglo-Saxons. So the shoes look very basic, don't they? And that's an iron padlock from this time period. You wouldn't expect them to have padlocks, would you really? But the shoes, I wouldn't say they were very comfortable. Okay. We've got another yellow along this way, and then we'll head for the story, I think. What's this one? This one looks like an ale house. Trade depot. I was a little bit away. The world comes to Yorvik. In the early Middle Ages, the centre of European trade moved from the Mediterranean to the northern seas. This brought goods and riches from all over the world to the Scandinavian town of Yorvik. Goods were brought all the way from Eastern Asia to Yorvik's markets. The settlers could get their hands on exotic products like spices, cinnamon and pepper, silk, or, as shown here, a cornelian bead all the way from India. The Scandinavians liked to show off how wealthy they were. Wearing a silk tunic or a headdress was a great way to let the world know they were rich. So they had a lot of different things coming from all over the world to this market. Okay. What do we got? This is Trig, our former slave who we freed once he agreed to come to Britain with us.
Trig, started unloading without me, I see.
We'll not carry this. Carry the new wares to the market stall. Okay. You coming, Trig? Come on, Trig.
Heavy labor before getting married. Your bride won't want to seal the covenant with a kiss.
If you don't want me to sweat so much, you can help me move these wares to our stall.
I give you your freedom and you see fit to order me around. You're lucky I've no more expeditions to tempt you with.
Ah, Edith would never have it. She means to settle and raise a fine crop of golden-haired Angles.
I've never dared ask what drew you to her. I know there are many fine Norse women who were devastated when you announced your betrothal.
She brought me to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I know that doesn't seem like much to some, yet she also thinks differently. Every conversation is a discovery of where our family traditions overlap and where they differ.
A meeting of hearts and minds, then. You're doubly blessed.
Thrice, Thorstein, for your friendship and our new trade partnership.
Your hard work made me a rich man. It's only fair I return the favor.
Alright, I put it down, but it's not allowing me to finish the quest. There we go. Complete the day's trades. What are we going to do?
I'll have to make a few sales today to cover the cost of Trick's wedding gift.
So we need to make some sales to cover the cost of a gift for the wedding.
From across the sea, mead and honey from the lands to the south, and warm winter pelts from the northern.
That looks like Basim to me. I don't think it is. Sailing.
I travelled from the Caliphate in search of gifts for the wedding of my daughter. I need 16 ells of wool, the pelt of a large bear, and 3 pots of summer honey. I hear your prices are excellent.
You've heard true. Let me tally the cost.
Double your prices, make a small profit. Sell the materials at cost. I would say make us. I don't want to double our prices. I think that's wrong. He said your prices are excellent. Thorstein's always been an honest man. I don't want to sell them for cost, because obviously we need some money to buy a gift. So I think we'll always make a small profit.
For all those goods, I would ask a mere 2 ounces of gold.
You drive a hard bargain, but I've been assured your quality is second to none. All right, I'll pay your price.
I hope you'll send others to see me as well.
I think that was a good answer. I didn't want to double our prices.
We're looking for donations to help the sick
Oh, really?
and the poor. Do you have anything you could offer?
Oh, we're going to have no money left.
Cost, to be certain. Let me think.
They want donations. Take 3 ounces of gold and my finest fur cloak. No. The season has been poor. Can only spare mead and smoked meat. I have nothing to give to the church at this time. Or ask the question again. I don't know what to send. I don't want to. We've just made 2 ounces of gold on that sale, but I'm not going to give them 3 ounces of gold and my finest fur cloak. Surely, I can only spare mead and smoked meat. I think is probably the safest answer. We're trying to make money here, not lose it.
I can give you some mead and some meat to fill empty bellies, but I'm afraid I can do little more.
Any donation is welcome, brother. The Lord favors those who give joyfully.
I wasn't going to give away 3 ounces of gold. That'd be ridiculous. We only gained 2 ounces from the trade. 1 hour later. How are we looking?
Bjorn! It's been many months.
Ah, Bjorn's here.
How goes the northern trade?
Not well. The pigs are savages, and the Angles are little better. They all want something for nothing, with no middle ground to be had.
Surely that's the nature of business, my friend. Finding a bargain that will work for everyone.
Not when I owe money to Guthrum, it isn't. Can I count on you, Thorstein? If his men come for me, will you stand by my side?
Take the cloak pins from that shelf and sell them in the marketplace. They'll fetch a fine price for little effort.
Enough to keep Guthrum happy while I find buyers for my other wares, to be sure. You've saved me again, brother. Thank you.
So, despite Bjorn trying to cause trouble for us at the start, we're now helping him with his debts. Thorstein has definitely forgiven him. But, I don't know, it just seems a bit much. But then they did say they were like brothers, so maybe. Even though coins were slowly becoming the main currency, barter remained a common tool of exchange. This style of trade employed a system, however informal, to measure the equivalent value of goods. For example, a trader could have negotiated how many hens he would get in exchange for 3 walrus tusks. Alongside bartering came the practice of silver hacking. When Vikings got their hands on silver items, they used to chop or hack them up. These silver hacks were more convenient to carry and easy to use in value-weighted transactions. Hacked silver could eventually be melted and moulded to form bullion, such as an example depicted here. So this is what they would do. They would melt it down. They'd hack the silver off items, and then boil it until it got liquid, and then reshape it into this kind of bullion. So it was easier to trade. Yeah, it's a little bit odd him helping Bjorn like that, considering what Bjorn nearly did to us. Right, we've got a Sean discovery tour next. And this one is about Animus translates Gal. It's a dead language pretty much alive, so this should be about voices and things like that. Let's find out.
It seems that Vikings and Anglo-Saxons could roughly understand each other at the time, as both of their languages sounded similar and had diverged only a few centuries before. To help actors during the recordings, the voice design team relied on linguists such as runologist Maya Bakval of Uppsala University. Uppsala. It makes me kind of happy, that word. Lines were then written in 3 versions: in English, for context, in the original language, Latin, Old Norse, Old English, and in phonetics for accurate pronunciation. Pronunciation, like that. Interestingly, it felt quite natural for Icelandic actors to pronounce Old Norse. Well, they wouldn't need a dictionary if their great-great-great-great-grandparents were around to translate, though that would be very unlikely.
I think Sean, in all of the Assassin's Creeds and his database entries, always just adds this element of humour. Interesting, that's what they did though. They were written in 3 different versions. I definitely need the phonetics, personally, for my pronunciation of some words. But yeah, very interesting, that's the way they did it. Okay, where are we heading next? We've got to visit the rune carver over here. I'm assuming that's to get the present that we need. Before we head there, let's head to this one, because we can always do these ones on the way back. I've got to keep very close eye on time. We've got about 10 minutes. So we'll head to the gold spot over here, and then we'll head to the rune carver to do that. And that might be it for this evening. We'll see what we like. I don't want to be going that way. Dead end. You can even hear the birds. That's one of the things that really impressed me about this game as a whole, was the sounds of just everything. The birds, you can hear them. The cargo ship the Nor. The seafaring medieval Scandinavian people had many types of vessel. The one they probably used the most was the cargo ship, the ocean-going trader, sometimes called the Nor. As seen in this image, the ocean-going trader's hull was the broadest, widest and deepest of all the Norse ships. This allowed her to bear more weight than her brethren, up to 24 tons in cargo. Because the Nor could carry such heavy loads, the ship was often used for commercial activities such as trade or transport. This ocean-going trader was adaptable. She could sail across vast seas and shallow inland rivers. She could carry Scandinavian settlers and their livestock to the colonies, be they neighbouring territories like Anglo-Saxon Britain or distant shores like Iceland or Greenland. As a merchant ship, the ocean-going trader did not need to manoeuvre as quickly as a warship. This meant she needed fewer crew members and oars to help her change course. Conveniently, this left more room for cargo and merchandise. So the ships were bigger for transporting goods. Obviously, the ship that Thorstein came across to Britain in with Gunhilda was tiny. When you put everyone into it and all their belongings and things. We've actually unlocked King Alfred as a character now. Yeah, we saw that, and it was tiny. But obviously, they now have bigger ships that they can use for trade. Okay, there's a gold icon here as well. We're looking for the rune person. We're going to do the gold bit first, then we'll speak to the rune carver. This is stone sculptures. Many people sculpted stone to express religious beliefs or to celebrate individuals and events. These stunning works of art shed light on the lives of those who created them. About 400 Anglo-Scandinavian stone sculptures were erected between 876 and 1066. This surge in new sculptures suggested that the Danelaws population was growing and become wealthier. Some of these sculptures were engraved with both Christian and heathen symbols. For example, this cross features both a crucified Christ and intricate pagan patterns. This could mean that Christian and pagan beliefs were becoming more and more woven together in Anglo-Scandinavian society. So it is interesting that things were kind of merging between the two. Right, let's go and speak to the rune carver. So I'm assuming Thorstein wants a rune for Trigg's wedding.
Hello, I would like to commission a rune stone to commemorate many years of happiness and success.
Or is this for his wife? I know it's him and his wife.
With many options.
I was afraid of that. Show me.
First, you will need to select the type of stone.
Okay. Do we want granite or limestone? I don't know what's good and what's not. My assumption would be limestone would probably disappear quicker than granite. I think limestone would get worn down by wind and rain quicker, is my thinking. So we'll pick granite.
Granite, please.
A solid choice. It will weather the elements
for
generations to come.
I like my choice was justified. Yes.
Yes, it is.
Then let us continue. Now you will need to choose what you want engraved on
This is what I've got no clue about. Something romantic, something classical, or something cheeky. I'm guessing because it's commemorating him and his wife's time together, their many years of marriage. He's going to want something romantic, isn't he? I would have said.
Love me. I love you, Gunhilda. Kiss me. I know you well.
A declaration for the ages. Is this the inscription you want?
We'll take that. That sounds good to me.
I'll get started on it right away. Your wife is
I thought it was buying a present for Trig, but not by the sounds of it.
All that remains is to confirm the design you would like me to carve for you.
Gladly.
Okay. Let's have a quick look at this, and then we need to pick a design. So this is a new mixed identity. The church often framed the world in black and white, depicting Christians and heathens both fighting a raging war for the supremacy of their beliefs. However, the truth was much more nuanced than Christian written sources suggest. It appears that heathens and Christians in Anglo-Saxon Britain managed to overcome their differences, coming together as people living under the same rulers and sharing the same land. With time and with no regard for their origins, the peoples living in the Danelaw could have come to see each other as one and the same people. Anglo-Scandinavians may have considered themselves as much Danes as English. This handle was a result of a mixed Anglo-Scandinavian craftsmanship. So that's interesting, isn't it? I was always taught that the Vikings did what they did, and actually this is telling us they were actually closer to the Anglo-Saxons than we were led to believe, even working together to make things. But it makes sense. They weren't going anywhere. Once they were there, they were staying there. Right, we've got to pick a design. Do we want the cross? Or do we want whatever that is? Don't know what that is.
This looks like a nicely hewn runestone.
It is tall and proud. A runestone will declare your words to the world for all the ages. It is a symbol of strength, wealth, and remembrance. Do you want a runestone for your wife?
I'm still deciding. I want to see what it says about the other one. I think we'll go for the runestone looking at it.
Tell me about this style of carving.
So this is more Anglo-Saxon, isn't it?
The Christians' redemption through the death of their Lord and Savior,
yeah,
Jesus
so that's
Christ.
more Anglo-Saxon.
It is a symbol of faith, hope, and eternal love. Do you want a Christian cross for your
no.
wife?
Gunhilda isn't. I don't think she's that kind of person. I don't think she's quite ready for that drastic change in how she is. Yeah, runestone, Kathy. I completely agree with you. The cross doesn't suit.
This
I don't think.
Like a nicely hewn runestone.
It is tall and proud. A runestone will declare your words to the world for all the ages. It is a symbol of strength, wealth, and remembrance. Do you want a runestone for your wife?
Yeah, my thinking, I'm on the same wavelength as you, Kathy. My thinking was, they're still Vikings. They only came here because they didn't really have much choice. Gunhilda wanted Thorstein to calm down and not keep raiding the king. So it's a way of having a new life together. But they're not going to get rid of their Viking ways completely. They're still going to believe in their gods. I can't see them converting completely. So yeah, I definitely think runestone is what we need.
Good, solid runestone will soon be yours then. I am certain your wife will be delighted with the results.
Whereas I think the cross would be a little bit too far. Right, our next mission is to find Trig, but Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to call it a night. My eyes are starting to close as I'm reading things. It's never a good thing to try and be doing. So, I think we'll finish there for this evening. We've done, 2 hours, actually. But I'm going to struggle to do much more. So what we think is, tomorrow evening the plan is Guardians of the Galaxy. If it doesn't arrive tomorrow, we'll do another evening stream of this at normal time. But if Guardians of the Galaxy comes, we'll start an hour earlier and do 3 hours of Guardians of the Galaxy, see what we think of it going into it. If that all goes to plan, Thursday evening we'll do another live stream and we'll finish the Age of the Vikings Thursday evening. That's the plan. We've got this chapter to finish and one more. Looking at the chapters previously, I've got a feeling the last chapter isn't quite what we've seen so far. I could show you, but I'm not going to. But I think it's a little bit different to what we've seen so far, is my guess. But it took us an hour to clear Winchester at the start of the stream of all the different things. I think this has more in it. Yorvik seems to have a lot more gold icons. So what we'll do Thursday evening, we'll come back and we'll clear all the icons as we work our way down to Trig across the water. I think if we clear the icons first and make our way towards it, that makes sense. Good, I'm glad you're enjoying it, Kathy. Yeah, I think one more stream. It just depends on how long this chapter goes on for, and the second chapter we need to do, the last one. We don't know how many discovery sites are going to be in that, do we? So it may involve 2. But we'll see how we go. But I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'm learning lots of things I had no clue about. Or I'm learning things that I thought I knew about, but I'm learning them different to what I believed, if that makes sense. So, like, made their way... What's going on there? Oh, so I thought my stream stopped, but I hadn't. I just saw something going on. I exited the game, and then I thought I crashed the stream, but it didn't. But yeah, it's definitely showing a different side to the Vikings that we don't necessarily get taught, or we know enough about. Which is quite interesting. And yeah, I think it's the best discovery tour I've seen so far. And I know this is only the 3rd one, but I do feel this is the best one we've seen so far. And the behind the scenes side of things as well, I think, is incredible. But that is it for today. That is it for this evening. As I say, we'll be back tomorrow evening. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Guardians of the Galaxy. If not, we'll carry on the Age of Vikings. But if Guardians of the Galaxy goes out tomorrow, it'll be Age of Vikings Thursday evening. There should be a Thursday mid-morning stream as well. Whether it'll be Guardians of the Galaxy or Brotherhood will depend on how it goes tomorrow evening. So we'll work that out tomorrow evening anyway. What else to say? Thank you to all of you, as always. I've had a really up and down lack of motivation day today, and the stream always cheers me up, always makes me happy. So thank you to all of you guys. As always, thank you for the views, the likes, and the conversation. You're all amazing, and I appreciate you lot keeping me going on bad days, especially. Thank you very much, Kathy. Have a good evening, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. So anyone else out there as well, thank you for joining us, and we will see you again very, very soon. Enjoy your evening, or your morning, your afternoon, depending where you are, and we'll see you again. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.